Hi, everybody. Hi, Pam.
Hello.
Hi, guys. Today I'm here with Pam, and we're going to have a conversation. This live is called Alive About Gary, and it's a part of our series that we're doing these months, basically interviewing different people and about the gift that Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, has been in their lives. And Pam is somebody that has been working very closely with the whole body of work that Gary started, Access Consciousness, and with him personally as well. And you were so excited about the idea of talking. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation. And also, when we talked about, so what is the one thing that Gary told you? You just said straight away, there is no one thing.
Yeah, and there isn't. I mean, it's so many things over the years, and some of them in classes, sometimes just, in a quick conversation. Um, really what I've been thinking of since you invited me to do this is, what has Gary and the tools he's brought into the world, what has that contributed to me in my life? And what I would say is it's changed absolutely everything. Um, I was someone who had created a life that was actually really working for me, and I was super happy and enjoying what I was doing. And then being introduced to these tools just allowed all of that to expand into more and more and greater and greater. And it's interesting because I was like, oh, what do I want to talk about? I think one of the fun things for me is at first when I, met Gary and stuff, I was totally tongue-tied around him. Like I couldn't think of anything to say. And part of that is like so often we know what to talk about with people based on our shared judgments.
Wow.
Like, if you're a parent and I'm a parent, we can bond over difficulties in parenting or that kind of thing. And when you meet someone who has no point of view, there's like, what do you chit chat about? You don't. Like you have creative conversations or something. But years ago, I was gonna be, he was gonna, he and Dane had a radio show, and I was gonna be a guest talking to Gary about, the earth and creating with the earth and parenting and like all just whatever it was. And I remember saying to him, like, am I actually going to be able to talk to you? Because my experience was, what do I say? And he was like, oh yeah. So, we went into the place where we were recording it, and Susie was there to record it. And I could totally easily talk to Gary during this interview. And then as soon as we walked out the door, I was back to, oh, I don't know how to relate to someone who has no point of view. And what I was aware of was he was willing to be whatever I required to be able to have that conversation. And one of the things that showed me is we can change, we can be what's required in the moment without ever diminishing ourselves and what we be in the world. And that is something that has really served me over the years is, because I'm someone who does tend to be in my head. Like I'm super good with, organizing and systems and, you know, which involves a lot of information. And, people joke about, oh, ask Pam, she knows everything because I do retain all that kind of information. So it was a very new muscle for me to come from what can I be that would create this? What can I be that would change this? What can I be? What's required here to be to create whatever it is without that meaning, oh, I have to limit myself to fit in and relate or whatever it is. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's what's coming to me now.
Totally. And thank you for
Yeah.
showing me a very different way of being in daily interactions,
Yeah.
actually, that Gary
Yeah.
has shown you. That's one of the beautiful things now that we share these things that a person has invited us, like Gary, and then we inspire each other. And that's the thing of basically consciousness, infecting. It's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no commiserating with Gary, basically.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I think of is like on the one hand, um, I would say like always with Gary, I feel invited to be more like and acknowledged for who and what I am in the world. Not that I can always receive it. So like, oh yeah, you're just saying that. I know I'm not any good, but you know, but like he's always inviting me to be more. On the other hand, that can be super uncomfortable. It's like uh, recently, I guess a couple of years ago, he started offering the ability to have private sessions. And I signed up for a session with him. And I remember like for 2 weeks ahead, I'm like, I got to get all my shit together. I can't have a bunch of problems when I talk to Gary. Like, it's like, which of course was that session facilitating me already in advance. Because like I don't know how to put this, but it invites me to look at where I'm kind of wallowing in my crap and go, would I really choose that? And just knowing I'm going to be talking to him, I come out of that. It's like, why would I choose that? Would an infinite being truly choose this? No. So it's like having the interactions with Gary, whether it's a question I'm going to ask in a class or, a question I'm calling him with on behalf of the work I do with Access, it, I truly have to look at, okay, where am I choosing limitation? And then I'm aware I could be choosing greater, and why not just choose it? You know, why wait until I'm going to be interacting with him? So anyway, so that's the kind of stuff I think of when I think of Gary in my life. It's a demand to be of myself, to be present and engaged and choosing rather than on autopilot.
And there's such a clarity in what you are describing as well, such a clarity and simplicity or ease, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also so wonder because I like to listen to, I've heard you speak on different podcasts or on calls about engaging with people because you are in touch with quite a lot of people that work with access consciousness or are licensed facilitators, etc.
Yeah.
And this whole also system and administration side of access consciousness. And I enjoy and I get inspired by the way that you can handle different situations, which might not be also quite easy or pleasant to deal with. And I
Yes.
wanted to ask you about this. Have you always had such an ease? Is that also something that Gary helped you, develop?
Well, what I'd say, I mean, I was always the person in my dorm that someone would come and talk to. I early on made the choice to be a social worker. Every kind of job I've ever had was about contributing to people. So I think there was a natural part of that I just came in with. Um, the tool interesting point of view. I have this point of view, and coming out of judgment and asking questions, like all those tools then allowed me to take that to something even greater. So, in the same way that I said I had created a life that worked for me and this allowed me to expand it, there's how I am in the world, and then the tools allow me to be even more of that. So I'm they call me the Paminator because I'm the one who'll, call you if you're a facilitator and you're doing something that's disempowering or that doesn't work. And so I think what I bring to that is I won't talk to you till I have no point of view about it. So, something might come across my computer, and I do have these moments of, you've got to be kidding me. Like, they're doing what? And then I pod poc, I use the clearing statement until I'm just truly like, okay, this is really interesting. What are they choosing, and what can we explore that would create something different? And that space allows me to engage with people in a way that creates more rather than, out in the world, you see people go into accusation and defense, and I've got to convince you of my point of view, or I've got to prove I'm right, like all those kinds of energies. And when you actually use these tools every day, you can be this space that's like, okay, here's what's up, here's what needs to be addressed. And you can do it from question and what's going to create, rather than trying to prove or get a point or make this result happen. All of that requires a lot of force. And to me, it applies like to everything. So, whether it's the political situation or the natural disaster fire thing, or whatever's going on, a death in the family, it's instead of going to, there's something wrong here, and now I have to deal with this wrongness, and it's a problem and everything. Instead, it can just be like, okay, there is a wildfire and I'm being evacuated. Okay, so what's required? I want to bring, my kids and my electronics and my financial records and the pets, and we evacuate. But there's no upset or distress with it from having points of view about it. And it's the same way with people. If I don't have expectations and judgments of how you have to be with me in a relationship, then I can just be present with what's showing up that day and what we'd like to create, which is a very different thing than I'm expecting you to be like this, this, and this, whether it's a work relationship or a family relationship, or, the relationship with the world. So,
And then, as you were saying at the beginning, you can have a creative conversation instead of a confrontation. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
interesting point of view thing that you were saying, and basically Gary and the tools, that goes hand in hand, of course. And
Yeah.
for me, this is what access is, why access is so different. I have never heard about interesting point of view, and that might be the one, like the key to the kingdom, that I so didn't know I needed. And
Yeah.
what a huge total difference
Yeah.
it makes. Yeah.
Well, when I first was introduced to the tools, it was the clearing statement and who does this belong to? And I was doing work that I mean, kind of, I'll say the words. I'm not the, anyone who hears this will be like laughing at me. I'm an introvert. So, or at least I used to be. And it was very hard for me to pick up the phone and talk to people, or, reach out to people. And I was doing work that required that. And I would agonize over it. And I would go take a hike for 2 hours to get to be space to be able to go do what I was going to do. And then I got, somebody said, oh, here's a clearing statement, from Access. Here's who does this belong to? And I'd go to pick up the phone and be like, oh, who does this belong to? And just call somebody and just take care of things. I used to agonize over, what am I going to say if I'm, I can't even honestly remember if there was emails then. There probably was, but, or write a letter or whatever. And suddenly I had the tools to interrupt that and go, oh, is this mine? What am I aware of? Who does this belong to? Pod and poc, where I've decided this is hard to do. And I went from taking like 18 hours a week to 5 to do the work I was doing.
Wow.
And because I didn't have to struggle with all this stuff. And what I'd say is, every class, every conversation, like, along the way of these years that I've, you know, been introduced to access consciousness and Gary and Dane, it's like every single thing that I receive from these classes and the interactions is having that effect, like that much difference in my life and how I be and how I'm in it and how I am with people and the work I do and everything.
Yeah. You cannot disconnect the contribution. It just like goes through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first, I think this was the first project that I was hired directly by Access Consciousness to do. I'd had some different facilitators hiring me to help them with their businesses, and it was called the guinea pigs because the idea was, okay, it's not. I mean, now people have a lot more business tools and stuff, but back then it was like, facilitators aren't necessarily the greatest at business. And what if we, you know, experiment with doing something to support them and their business and stuff like that? So the guinea pigs were 7 facilitators that we were trying this with. And they hired me to create that whole program and do what we were doing with it. And the very first meeting about it, I can remember it was, Simone was there and Gary and Dane and some other people, and the space and speed of creation was just like, this is what I've always known was possible. It was, asking questions, looking at the energy of things, choosing and creating it. And, it was diving headfirst into a whole different way of being with business and creation. And like I said, it was like what I've always known was possible, but I didn't have the words for. I didn't know how to have that when everything around me was slow and fixed and just not that ease of creation.
Yeah.
And it's been a ride that I have been grateful and delighted to be on ever since, because it's always changing. And there's that's part of it too. There's no fixed, this is what it is, this is how we do it, this is the way it is and how it has to be, which so much of everything I'd done before had that going on. It will change on a dime if that's what's going to create more consciousness, if that's what's going to create greater. And, and then that invites me to be that in my everyday life. And, have one of my kids isn't so easy with change. And I'm like, you picked a really hard mom for you. Yes. And so I'm all about changing everything all the time for what's going to create greater.
Yeah. Thank you also for this, because just the gratitude also to Gary for creating Access Consciousness, that is a company that allows for this speed of change. And
Yeah.
also, if you are interested or are engaged with the company of Access Consciousness in any way, whether it is because you're a bars practitioner or you like to receive, or you're a facilitator, or you work to an extent like a translator or whatever, there is such a space of go and find out what it is that you actually truly love
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Just
That
like,
and that's one of the things that I've really received from, working with Gary is like he gives someone the space to go try it and fail, and it's not like, "Oh, how could you have done that?" It's, "Well, you chose, you created what you created. Is it working? Is it not? What would you like to choose now?" And, that is, I mean, that goes so far beyond like, we say, "Oh, someone has your back." Like, this is so much more. This is someone who's willing to have you be and explore and try. And even if it means his company loses a bunch of money, it doesn't matter, as long as, you come out of it more aware and choosing and creating even greater. Like, that's not something that I've encountered anywhere other than with access consciousness.
Wow. Yeah, it's like not only has he also shown me how much he has my back, and but the empowerment to have your own back. You say,
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
wow.
So,
Thank you so much, Pam.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me on here.
Yes, with great pleasure. And how does it get any better than this? I'm very happy that I got to explore with you also this side of basically what's it like to work with, and truly what else is possible. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And thank you everybody for watching us, and bye-bye.